matter.
Police are becoming a bigger part of the school experience. Students are racking up legal consequences that could follow them for life.
Fox 6 investigator Amanda St. Hilaire discovered several local school districts and police departments are not following national standards. She's here in the studio tonight. Amanda?
Parents told us the same behavior that sent them to their principal's office got their kids sent to court. Public records do paint a picture of what justice looks like in our schools. But even more telling might be what's not in those records. In any school hallway, you'll hear the sounds of change. But it's not just about getting to the next class.
An ominous message circulated on social media.
Students shared nude photos.
Relentless harassment.
10,000
8 students and 2 teachers killed.
As a result, the majority of U.S. students now have a school security presence, usually in the form of school resource officers. But calls from parents
is complicated.
And research from UW Law School point to another change.
Something that honestly 15 or 20 years ago, you might have seen that as strictly school response, now becomes a police or criminal matter.
The Fox 6 investigators asked 7 Southeast Wisconsin school districts and police departments for records of police activity in schools. 6 gave us records showing legal action against students. Some involve school threats, theft, drugs, fighting, and truancy. But there were also charges and citations for things like students swearing, showing disrespect and defiance, using cell phones without permission, shoving another student against a locker, even setting off a stink bomb.
Rather than police being utilized as sort of a means of last resort, instead they become, or can become in some instances, more of a sort of first response.
In just 2 years, police responses in Racine and Cedarburg school districts doubled. Over 3 years, police activity in Waukesha School District tripled. And while Waukesha officers used to take action and write tickets 60% of the time, last year it was 100%.
I don't think that there's actually a lot of data to support that is all that effective.
Jonathan Shar studies justice. He says the still developing impulsive teenage brain can't always grasp long-term consequences. Even juvenile citations can prevent students from getting certain forms of college financial aid or becoming lawyers or police officers.
And then also a high predictor of their future likelihood of becoming involved in the adult criminal justice system.
Shar promotes an alternative called restorative justice, changing problem behavior and repairing the harm.
So if someone just gives me a ticket, like that's the end of it. I don't actually have to be directly accountable to anyone, and I don't really understand the impact of my actions very well.
So instead of citations, a student caught vaping does a school presentation about the health risks. A teenager who has outbursts could go to counseling. A student who punches someone,
well, welcome everybody to teen court,
may end up in Waukesha County Teen Court.
And what went through your head after you realized you broke his nose?
I could have avoided the situation.
Adults supervise.
Please think about your decision carefully.
But the jury and attorneys are teenagers.
What is your verdict?
Sentences like community service, counseling, and future teen court hearings keep the student's record clean.
A lot of people know that juvenile offenses, especially felonies, they are on your record the rest of your life.
This court's adjourned.
I think it is a second chance.
There has to be a limit to this.
The National Association of School Resource Officers, or NASRO, says restorative justice won't always work.
How many times do we allow anyone to commit the same crime without it eventually becoming an arrest situation?
But NASRO also teaches that police need to treat students differently.
Let's face it, law enforcement officers could make arrests all day long in a school for disorderly conduct if they wanted to. But they don't have to because they've got other resources around them.
NASRO encourages schools and police to have formal school resource officer agreements and to track police response in schools.
I mean, this is a process that is proven to work if done the proper way.
But several local school districts and police departments do not follow that process. Of these 7 school districts, 3 do not have formal school resource officer agreements. 4 say they do not track police response.
How do we know how we can do something better unless we're actually looking at what we're doing and what the outcomes of that behavior and that action is?
We asked for on-camera interviews. Only one school district said yes.
I like your enthusiasm, guys.
Thank you. The Germantown School District and Police Department spent hours answering our questions.
I tend to walk really fast, so.
And showing us how School Resource Officer Tony Olson interacts with students.
I hope I've had a positive impact on even just one.
Germantown has a formal School Resource Officer agreement. The school district and police track and share data.
It's a two-way street in helping make better decisions about kids and their behaviors.
Did I miss anything?
Over the last 4 years, police responses in the school district are down. So are legal actions against students.
Our SROs are able to provide services that are more about learning.
You guys can go. That's fine.
Officer Olson says she typically gets involved only after the school administrators, counselors, and social worker.
I'd rather have the behavior change for the better and have that citation dismissed versus having them pay a fine and the behavior continues.
The superintendent admits students today likely do get more charges and citations than their parents' generation.
We don't live in that day and age anymore. As a result of many of the things that our students are exposed to that weren't around just a decade ago, things have to be different.
Teenage technology, pressures, and reactions will always change. Police, school districts, attorneys, and advocates say it's up to the adults to ensure justice keeps up. We do have more research about how restorative justice works in schools, how discipline affects students of different races and backgrounds, and National School Resource Officer Association standards on our website, fox6now.com. That's also where we have more information about the school districts that would not go on camera to answer our questions.
So Amanda, does the fact that we're seeing more police responses in most schools mean that kids are misbehaving more today than they used to be?
Not necessarily, although it depends on who you ask. Police officers have told us off camera that they feel as though schools do call them more simply because they know the school resource officer is already there as a resource. Teachers and administrators say you also have to factor in those newer issues that did not exist even 10 or 15 years ago, like sexting and cyberbullying.
Interesting.
Makes me miss the 1980s. When I was in high school. That's a great
I won't tell you
report.
what I was doing in the 1980s.
What a perspective of how quickly things changed, though. That was
Absolutely.
a great story. Man, thank
The
you.
weather's got enough of a bite. Don't tell us.
Yeah, right.
Amanda, thanks for that. He said that